At Panam 360, I am joined today by Argentinian countertenor Franco Fagioli, who will make his Canadian debut at the Festival de Lanaudière on July 26th at the Amphithéâtre Fernand for a concert where he will perform works by Rossini, Mercadante, Zingarelli, and Niccolini, just to name a few. A very diverse repertoire where he will be accompanied by the Orchestre Royal de Versailles under the baton of Maestro Stefan Plewniak. Franco Fagioli, hello to you.
Hello, hello, hello. Good morning there. Good
Yes, good
afternoon.
morning. Yes, and good morning to you in Madrid right now, where we are joining you. Um,
Mm.
so first, maybe for those who might not know you for your Canadian debut in at La Naudière, when did you discover your voice, and what made you choose that voice and that repertoire?
Well, let's say that starting by having very strong experiences during my childhood, when I was a kid, I started singing in choirs, right? And that was in Argentina, in San Miguel of Tucumán, where I was born. And I started singing there at my school choir. And lately, I was singing at a more academic choir of the university in Tucumán. And well, very early, when I was at the school, the teacher of the choir discovered that I had this let's say we call it voce bianca, no? The white voice, the voice that the kid has. And he discovered that I had this facility for singing with a quite secure tone and a high tessitura. When I was a kid, kids are the way you call the voices in kids are sopranos or contraltos or mezzo-sopranos. You call it like that. You don't call them tenors or baritons,
Yeah.
right? And well, I was a soprano. I was a soprano. I could say still I'm a soprano sometimes. But that's another speech that we should maybe do sometime, because nowadays the countertenor name needs to be a little bit reviewed. But
Mhm.
well, I discovered it there. It was so strong for me, the feelings about singing so beautiful music in this soprano voice, that even lately when I let's say when the change of the voice came, when you are in the teenager time,
Mhm.
let's say that these experiences that I had when I was a child were very strong on me. So, for example, um, when I had 12 years old or 11 years old, I was choose. I remember in my city to participate in the Mozart Sabelflöte.
Yes.
The Magic Flute of Mozart, this very famous opera that has three kids that sings during the show. And I remember I was 11 or 12 years old, and the fact to be there on stage, listening the orchestra and listening the other singers, and me singing with with my kid voice, that was, of course, in a soprano tessiture. I think that was very strong for me. I think because lately, for example, when I started my piano studies almost in the same time, right? I started to the conservatoire to study music and piano, and then I became very, very focused on the piano studying. But the remembrance or the feeling, you know, on my soul, on my body about this kind of thing, it never left me, in the sense that even if I was studying piano and I was not already so focused on singing, and I was maybe, I don't know, 14 years old, 15 years old, I was always making jokes. In that time for me were jokes about singing high, because in my province, in San Miguel de Tucumán, nobody would say, "Oh, what you are doing is singing as a countertenor." or nowadays, as they call as a male soprano, you know. And then for me, it was just imitating what when I used to do as a child. But I remember that I was playing the piano for a choir, and I was playing as an accompanist for this choir. And I remember I had to play the Stabat Mater by Pergolesi, right? And of course, I say, okay, I need to go to a music shop to buy a CD, to listen the piece, and to be able to really play it better, you know, for this choir. And you know, in Tucumán, we had maybe one or two music shops with some CDs in that time. And I remember I took the only one version of the Stabat Mater that was there in a CD. Then I went home, I put it, and I started to listen. And I remember very clearly, still today, that I was listening, of course, the soprano voice, but the other voice was a little bit, what is this for me? Yeah, I sing in the alto part, but when I bought the CD, I bought it without reading anything, you know, who was the singer, who was the interpreter, nothing. It was the only version there, so I took it. And then when I was at home, I was reading who was singing the alto part, the contralto part, I discovered that was a man. I said, oh, then this thing that I'm singing when I'm making jokes about how was my voice when I was a child is it's actually a vocal register.
Yeah.
It's actually real. And then I say, well, I want to be this. I want to do this. I want to, in that moment, I say, okay, I want to be a countertenor. And that was how I discovered that I wanted to pursue this path, right? This way of singing in the let's say, I still say the countertenor register, even if I say that nowadays
The name should be a little bit changed or reviewed, yeah.
it needs to be a little review. But yeah, that is how I discovered that I would follow this path, the path of singing in the head voice.
How does one is trained to become a countertenor to maintain that voice? Because, like you said, I mean, everybody goes through puberty, and at that age, you could have wanted to, move from your soprano or male soprano voice to a tenor voice or even baritone, if it was called for. But when you choose to pursue in that, I suppose that it calls for a specific way of teaching, maybe. So maybe it is a silly question, but how does your vocal training or then your daily vocal routine to keep your voice in shape and healthy differs from others, if it differs in any kind?
There is too much fantasy about the countertenor voice and about the men singing high.
Yeah.
Maybe the world of today needs some fantasy. The famous voice of angels that sometimes you listen about castratis. Well, I should sell myself and say very specific things and all, blah, 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 but no, my friend, no, Alexander. This is singing, right? This is singing, and you train your voice, first of all, as any other singer. In my particular case, I train my voice following the Italian school.
Okay.
What is this? The bel canto school. Yeah, that's the point why sometimes I say, what is a countertenor today, right? Why we call ourselves countertenors, or why I don't call myself a male soprano, even if I sing. I don't know if you listen, my repertoire has also a higher pitch, but why he calls himself a countertenor and not a male soprano? And why some singers call themselves male sopranos and not countertenors? So we have a little bit of a mess nowadays with the nomination.
Definition.
Yeah, Alexander. And I really desire from the bottom of my heart to help a little bit to bring a little bit of light on it, right? Opera didn't invent the name of the voices, first of all. We have to know that. The nomination of the voices was not invented by opera. It was invented before, right? So what happened after the Gregorian chant? What happened after the plain chant? It becomes a polyphony, right?
Absolutely.
So they needed to name the voices as cantus or supra, supra, soprano, as alto or contra alto against high, counter-tenor in between alto and tenor, bass. Then we talk about baritone and mezzo-soprano. That's a very, very modern way of calling a voice.
Yes.
Mezzo-soprano is a name that start to sound at the end of the 18th century.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, maybe this is not actually answering the point of the question, but we need to start to talk about it. So if you ask myself, how do I train it by voice?
Yeah.
Thank God I was trained my voice by a baritone or by a soprano, never by a countertenor. Speaking about any special way of doing a technique. There is nothing special here. There is only a way to learn how to sing. In my case, was the Italian way.
Yeah.
What's happened with this? What is the Italian way? What is the bel canto, right? Is bel canto only the music of the 19th century? Is bel canto the operas that Rossini, Bellini, and Meyerbeer composed? Is bel canto the way of singing of the 19th century? Or is bel canto a way of name a melancholy feeling of that was the golden age of singing that was started by the very famous teachers as Porpora and the very famous singers as the castrati, like Farinelli, Senesino. So for me, bel canto is just one thing. Bel canto is Italian opera. So for me, bel canto is not only 19th century. Bel canto is a way of singing, is a tradition of singing, and is Italian way of singing, is Italian opera. It's a singing that is based on the free resonance, on the use of the whole voice, and this is very interesting because then if you start to listen about tradition of singing, if you go into the British tradition, countertenors in the British traditions, it's not the same as a singer that was trained in the Italian tradition. And that makes the difference that we have to start to speak about it. What's the difference of a countertenor and just a soprano or a contralto? Even without the need to say male something, you don't need to say that. Because in the moment that when the nomination of the voices was created, the nomination of the voices was created in monasteries. So if you have a monastery full of monks, you will not say a male soprano. No, they were sopranos or altos singing polyphony, Palestrina or whatever. Or in a monastery full of nuns, sometimes you had basses nuns or tenor nuns. Even Vivaldi wrote pieces. Vivaldi is a famous composer that he wrote many compositions for. In Venetian was full of this ospedale, and sometimes they were only for girls, right?
Absolutely.
He wrote incredible pieces for voices too. So it is very interesting to open a little bit and say, moment, opera.
It's not that,
Yeah, and opera didn't invent the name of the voices. But nowadays we have to say, okay, male soprano, okay, a countertenor, and we have a mix because we seem to be that we don't understand nothing, and it's much more simple than that. So in my case, I could call myself a soprano or a mezzo soprano because I didn't train my voice in the British tradition of singing. I train my voice in the Italian tradition of singing. That means that you have a chest voice, a middle voice, and a head voice. And you know how to use all these three voices,
Mm.
like a mezzo soprano singing Ulrica would do, or like a mezzo soprano singing Magdalena in Verdi would do.
Mm.
Actually, it's very funny because sometimes, because of the confusion, sometimes what is a virtue for a mezzo soprano, the fact to use the chest voice and the head voice, sometimes becomes a mistake for a canto-tenor. In the sense that we don't understand what a canto-tenor is and what only a contralto is. And that's a very interesting door that we have to open right now. Of course, when I started my studies, and when I started, let's say my career, it was already. I remember my first contract in Europe was 2005, and of course, I didn't know neither. Now I studied a little bit more, and I can say this. But in that moment, I say, okay, I'm a countertenor. Okay, I will call myself a countertenor.
Mm.
But because of the training I had in the Italian school, right now I know that countertenor maybe is not the right nomination.
Mm.
And well, uh, that's a very interesting thing. So answering your question about how I train in by voice, I was very lucky about to be trained in an Italian tradition,
Yeah.
in an Italian theater, because I studied in the Teatro Colón in Buenos Aires that has a huge Italian
Italian
tradition.
school tradition. Yeah.
Yeah, and my teacher was a baritone. Baritone. Actually, in my first lesson, my teacher listened to me and he started to listen to explain me all the technique and blah blah blah. And he says for the next lesson you will bring this aria. And he gave me Eccomi al fine in Babilonia, the aria of Arsace by Rossini in Semiramis.
Mhm.
So nothing of Handel, nothing of Vivaldi, nothing of those things that normally you would expect. It was the Italian technique. It was
Yeah.
the Italian technique that teach me to use the voice in the whole spectrum, let's say,
Yeah.
right? Not only the head voice,
No,
because
but
some
really, like you said, like really
yeah,
the whole of the body. Now, it is extremely interesting the way that you present it, and it's
yeah,
really
because sometimes
nice to
it
hear.
happens. I sometimes it's I get fun about it because sometimes people doesn't know when you are singing, they don't understand very well
Mm.
because, okay, sometimes you had an idea what a countertenor is,
Mm.
and then nowadays that concept has a very big development,
Yeah.
positive in a way, right?
Yeah.
Because it's not nowadays we have many colleagues singing and during crossing a lot of boundaries and singing a lot of repertoire. But countertenor doesn't mean angel voices.
Mm.
Castrato doesn't mean angel voices. It means a whole voices. So
Mm.
if you have low notes, you can use it. If you have middle note, you can use it. If you have high notes, you can use it.
Yeah.
I know, like a mezzo soprano singing, I told you, Maddalena, or like a mezzo soprano singing, I don't know, any role that needs the whole use of the voice, you know? But then we have to speak also about traditions and schools. It's not the same school, the British schools, that
Mm.
the German schools, that the Italian school.
Yeah. Speaking about those school of thought, those school of singing, it reflects, I think, and I assume in the choice of the repertoire that you made for this concert, which is centered heavily around, if I'm not mistaken, classical figures of this repertoire, like Rossini, Mercadante, Zincarelli, Niccolini, like I said. So those are really, like you said, those are not necessarily a name that we normally might associate with the countertenor voice, which is heavily anchored in the Baroque era. Tell us a little bit, not necessarily giving us all of the program because we need to have a little bit of surprise, but um, what are some of the pieces that you chose and why did you chose those pieces and how did you organize them in this program?
Well, first of all, the pieces, the musical arias, all of them were written for Giovanni Battista Velluti. Who was Giovanni Battista Velluti? Velluti was the last castratos on stage on 19th century,
Mm.
right? The most famous castrato we know in our imaginary is Farinelli, for example.
Yes.
There is a movie about it. Okay, so Velluti, Giovanni Battista Velluti, it was the last singer of this tradition of singing. My aim, more or less, was to do a little homage to this singer, and that was the pieces that I will play that are also recorded. It was all of those pieces were written for him. Yeah. And let's say that I have a special connection for all this music because of all this what I explained you before. I was not trained as a beginner as a Baroque singer. I was training just as an opera singer.
Yeah.
Even with the high voice, right? And then of course I start my career in Europe, and of course as a countertenor or as a male mezzo soprano, as you wanted to call me, I don't know.
Mhm.
As I sometimes say, okay, countertenor singing in the mezzo soprano range, because that's what I do. Of course, I started my career, let's say, through the path of the Baroque composers, Handel, Vivaldi. But then I wanted to do this homage to this Velluti, especially for that, because it says a lot about my beginning, and it says a lot about the way I learned how to sing. Not maybe in the traditional way of the countertenor by the Baroque, but directly on the bel canto music, on the 18th century music. So the music that was chosen for the program, Niccolini, Meyerbeer, Rossini, were compositions wrote specially for Giovanni Battista Velluti. So the music is completely bel canto music, so having Rossini, but it's also a music that is in the middle of a transition of the style, right? Also because of the castrati, the figure of Giovanni Battista Velluti is interesting in the sense that it was the last one of a very old tradition, but at the same time, let's say it was a lonely artist in the field already in that time, because there was no more castratism anymore.
Mhm.
So he was the last, and still the composers keep writing for him. Actually, when Velluti visited London, there has passed already 25 years that nobody had listened to a castrato. So
Yeah.
so the music that I will play in Canada and United States is a music that was written for this castrato, and it's not Baroque music. That's the interesting thing.
Yeah.
It's 19th century music, and it defined the school of singing that I was trained of.
Did the way that those composers write the the melodic line for this voice is different from, let's say, more Baroque composer, or is it relatively similar, or is it more like you said, influenced by the bel canto, which is really, lyric lines, really like arch, uh,
Yeah.
like that.
Well, Alexander, yes and no.
Okay.
Because of the same idea I told you before. There is a mistake about to make compartments in Italian repertoire. And
Mhm.
for me, it's a mistake. For me, bel canto is one thing.
Mhm.
Since Monteverdi till, you know,
Mhm.
I mean, Puccini, you call verismo in Puccini.
Yes, yes, and Verdi also, yeah, yeah.
But no, they are also still following this Italian tradition of singing,
Mhm.
right? Of course, they have changed. They had changed some modism, some ways.
Yeah.
Uh, for example, I like to sing. I like to think about the Rossini, Donizetti, and Bellini as really sons of the Baroque composers,
Mhm.
because in the convention of writing, there was not much changing.
Mhm.
So in Rossini, you also have the coloraturas. In Bellini, you also have the coloraturas. in all of them, you also have the typical accompagnato recitatives.
Absolutely.
And the accompagnato recitatives in Donizetti, Bellini, Donizetti are based on the same kind of accompagnato Handel used to do, or Porpora used to do.
It's true. Very, very true.
I don't like to think in Italian opera as compartment. For me, Italian opera is a one thing. Actually, I love to think that who understand Monteverdi can sing much more better Puccini.
Yeah,
there is a very interesting connection about it that we should never forget. So the way of writing in these composers that I will play in the concerts I will do there, for me there is a clear connection with Baroque composer, but also because for me there is not a cut.
Yeah.
There is not a cut, and if you use your ear carefully, you will find it. You will find it. Of course, in 19th century, sometimes we have more development in the, let's say, there is like an expansion on the melodic speech. Let's put it that way. A little bit of respect. But it's beautiful to understand it connected to the origins.
You are absolutely right.
So Nicolini, Mercadante, Meyerbeer, Rossini, for me are sons of the Baroque composers. For me, there is no cut, there is no interruption of a way of doing it. And then appears Puccini. But then if you take Monteverdi, you will say, oh, che gelida manina, se la lasci riscaldar. Isa che gelida manina. What's a melody is that? No, it's not a melody, it's a parlato.
No, absolutely. Yeah.
And then you have the same in Monteverdi.
Yeah.
Popea, lascia che io parta, non partir, signor, ed è non partire. So, wow.
Yeah. No, I mean,
Italian opera is things that goes everything together.
Absolutely. So the public will be able to hear everything that you just explained about this whole experience of your voice on July 26th at the Festival de Lanaudière in the Amphitheatre Fernand-Lindsay, where you will be singing compositions from the classical period, not the Baroque period, to be able to express the high variety of this voice of yours and all of its uniqueness. Thank you very much, Franco Fagioli, for having taken the time to be with us today.
Thank you.